Guys, I thought I'd get on here and do something a little bit different. I don't, or I never have done a review of a firearm, but I did get about a year ago, and I've got other firearms as well, but about a year ago I got something that I could carry that would pack a little bit more punch than other firearms that I had, at least in the form of a pistol. I do a lot of hiking here in North Idaho, but also just for home safety. Those who want to hike in nature and consider it luck of the draw, by all means, go ahead. Last year that I worked at Yellowstone Park, there were 2 hikers within the park limits that were mauled by a grizzly bear. Not just mauled, but killed. So each to their own. Do as you please. I often have my kids when I'm hiking, and I do feel kind of responsible for their safety. So what I got, and I did have a different pistol, but what I got is, because I do have a history or an interest in kind of historical Western sort of military guns. So what I got is a remake of an 1871 Army revolver, and this is it. It's got the 8-inch barrel. This is a .45 caliber Colt, and I'm not necessarily a gun guru. Others could tell you a whole lot more, but back in the day, these were, I'm gonna have to back that up to show the barrel. Back in the day, these were black powder pistols. And this lever here, I'm gonna try to zoom in. This lever here is how you would kind of push your ball cap down in your barrel, and then you switch it, pack another one, and so forth for all 6 shots. And then when the cartridge was invented, that's a .45 caliber. When the cartridge was invented, then those who own these black powder, cowboys, military, whatever, they would take these to a gun shop, a gunsmith rather, and they'd get these cylinders. You had to add a ring in here because it was a different depth. So this ring part here, they'd have to add a ring in. But also, let's see if I can show it there, they'd have to get a little gate machined in. That little area there, they'd have to machine out and put a little gate so that you could put a cartridge in there. And that worked good, but the cartridge and that lead bullet, what fit in here and then the actual diameter of the barrel were different. So you would get a little bit of, the bullet turbulence in there, moving around. I'm not sure turbulence is the right word. But that's what they did. They would just convert their black powder to accept a cartridge. And for those of you who do have black powder pistols, you can buy a conversion kit that will accept cartridge, but you'll still have that little bit of slop in the barrel. And I almost went that route, and then this company, Cimarron Firearms, they came out with a remake of this 1871 Colt Classic. And why I went that route is it's machined, the barrel and this cylinder is machined for the .45 caliber. Which means when I shoot a .45 caliber, I get a better, more accurate path down that barrel, because the barrel is not, this is not a for all practical purposes, not a black powder barrel. So, and the ones that, for instance, if you do have a black powder pistol and you want to convert it, you can jump back and forth and shoot black powder and cartridges. That's my understanding. I've never done it. But I went this route, and this one here is a Type 2. They have a Type 1 and a Type 2. Very little differences. The Type 2 is supposed to be just a notch more to the original, authentic, old Colt Classic. So this gun here, awesome pistol. Shoots well. I carry it basically when I'm hiking. I carry it, and even if I'm hiking on the back of my property, I carry it for no other purpose other than, you know, to be honest with you, I worry about running into some ass backwards person on the back of my property than I do wildlife. Wildlife, for instance, I have moose on my property. I was out chopping wood, and you've seen the video. I'm out chopping wood and there's a moose behind me. And at no time did I fear for my existence because of this moose. Yes, there's the off time they can become dangerous, just like a grizzly bear or anything, really, even a coyote. That's when you have this, is for that off chance. But I don't walk around in fear, so I know people are going to get on there and leave a comment that I walk around in fear. No, I don't. I've walked up on the back of my property, and I have found where people have snuck in to the back of my property. You got to remember, I can't see the back of my property. So I've walked on the back of my property to find the remnants, what's left of where somebody snuck in to make meth. Remind you, I don't go back there. Somebody could be back there set up for a week and I wouldn't know. That's more my concern than wildlife. I do not walk around in fear of wildlife. And I'm not one that goes around I don't even hunt. So if you're going to leave that comment, please skip it. But on the off chance, you know, I'm out there with my 9-year-old and 4-year-old, and there should be, you know, some crazed animal that perhaps it's a pretty bad summer for them. You know, you're free to leave your kid to fend for themselves. You know, we each have our choice. But this video is not about that. It's about this Colt Classic. Awesome firearm. Shoots awesome. I was gonna shoot it for you, but y'all know what a gun sounds like. This pretty much, I'll cover that. I'm not gonna do it because I don't have an empty cartridge with me, and I don't want to do it the loaded one. But these shells, I always leave 5 in the chamber. It's carry 6, so I do the classic 5 in the chamber, move it over 1 click. That way your fire one empty. But just slide in like that and go on to the next one. I'll show you at the end. But to empty your empties, they use this old little lever that you would use for loading the old black powder, and as you can see, that comes clear through. So you can use that to empty your empty shells. They do kind of, you know, somewhat expand a little bit, and they can be difficult to take out. But to load it, you know, I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I leave the 6th one. I don't spin it at the end. I might have said that, but I don't spin it at the end. I leave that 6th one empty. So right now, in that chamber that would fire now, there is no brass, no bullet. Shut the little gate, and she's loaded. And that's how I leave it. I leave it loaded And because I'm not rich, I just bought myself a cheap carry. And that's how I leave it. Up from the kiddos. Grab it if I'm going to go on a hike in the woods. Grab it if I'm going to go even on the back of my property. Other than that, it's just for home protection. I see all the time. I don't want to mention a story, but one happened close to me in Coeur d'Alene, but you can look it up for yourself, where there was some crazed psychopath stalked a family, killed the whole entire family with a hammer. I've got dogs, and I think that the dogs that I have, I think would do the trick. I don't think anyone would approach. I think anyone would be crazy to approach with just the dogs that I got. But you know, nowadays you don't know. But I'm not going into the responsibility and the ethics of this and the ethics of that. I'm just this is just a review of an old Western. This actually, I guess, was made for the Navy. But back in the day, a lot of the cowboys, you got to realize, they were in the military. No matter what branch of military. Navy had their own pistols. Army had their own. And then when they got out of the military, became cowboys, whatever, outlaws, they had the same guns. And at that time, you know, black powder, and then they would, later when cartridges were invented, take them off to gunsmiths to have them converted. And that's what I find fascinating. That's the only thing I wanted to do this whole video on, is just the history of how black powder pistols, rifles probably too, but pistols is what I'm talking about, you know, the revolvers, how they were able to be converted by cutting out the little back door here to load a cartridge and put in an extra long cylinder. How they were able to be changed from black powder to cartridge. Whether you're a cowboy, outlaw, whatever, or the law for that matter. And that's all I wanted to cover here, is the history, you know. Just something like this has such a rich history, and how it's able to be swapped over. So that's my talk. I'm not going to call it a review, but that's my talk on the Richardson Mason remake of a 1871 Colt classic, Colt 45. That's it, guys.